Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode. Not going to want to miss this one. Got a lot of cool stuff, and at least one of these snakes has never been on the channel before. We're going to show you a total of 7 animals today. I promised for a while that I would start doing some different types of videos, including some top lists and countdowns and opinion type stuff. So we're going to get into that today. This will be the first one. I figured plus it would be nice, break up the visit videos a little bit. I have one more left with Dylan that'll follow this one. And then maybe I'll be able to get on the road and shoot some more at some point, depending on logistics and what's going on with all the lockdowns and all that kind of nonsense. So this video today is going to be the top 5 species that I keep currently. And top 5 being my favorite 5 for various reasons. Now I'm cheating a little bit, and there's going to be 7 snakes because I feel like even though the Bloods and Shorttails are 3 different species, if I were to include them in my list as separate species, that would eat up a lot of the space. So I have one example of each, and I'm going to consider that a tie, and then I'll discuss at that time where they fall and why. So let's start off with our first animal here. And this is a guy that you guys have seen a couple of times on the channel before, but I never get sick of showing him off. One cool thing I want to show you beforehand, I was cleaning out his cage while I had him out. He actually just shed and he had a little piece stuck, so I had him soaking for a minute, which is really cool. I just put him in his own water container and I just stuck the water container inside of here and he just sat in there, he didn't come out. But this is something that this species leaves behind. And what this is it's actually just hair, nothing else. And they actually throw it up out of their mouth. And I've never caught them doing it, but when they do it, their whole diaphragm, like it's a really violent looking thing. And they essentially sound like they're coughing and this will come up. So I've never caught him doing it, but I found it in there while I was cleaning and thought it would be cool to show off. Now, I mix his diet up so I don't get them as often as some people that maybe just feed strictly rodents. I mix in birds and things like that as well with him. So let's get him out. Looks like he might still have a little bit of stuck shed on his chin I've got to get to at some point. But like I said, you guys are familiar with this little dude here. And let me just give him a second to get his bearings before I reach in here on him. This video could get really exciting because a few of these animals don't really behave themselves outside. He's obviously not one of them. He's just fucking great. I love this snake. So this is my male southern whitelip, and I picked whitelips as my number 5 species that I have currently. Why number 5 and not higher on the list? Because like if it was just based on him as an individual, he's awesome. And of course it's hard because I like all my snakes, so it's hard to rank them. But I think this is probably the species that causes the most stress, if you will, as far as care goes. They don't really have a lot of room for error. They dehydrate very quickly. They need a lot of humidity. And right now, living up here where I do, with the change of seasons happening, we go from like 80–90% humidity, 100% humidity, and all of a sudden it's like 30%. And then the heat kicks on in the house and dries it out even more. And then the heat in their caging starts to kick on more and more often because it's trying to, keep the temperature at where it's set. And so you start to burn through more humidity that way without changing the temperature at all, just because the heat is kicking on more often. And so I had to change his setup around a little bit, and I changed it around a little bit more today while I was in there cleaning. Great animals, cool animals, not for everybody. They can be very difficult to work with. Even him, he can be cage defensive. He can really run, musk, and he did all that today because he was in his hide when I took him out. But very interesting animals to watch, very active, especially at night. He's always out checking stuff out. He wasn't using his hide at all, but now that I switched his cage around, he's been using it more. But now I have his hide on a different spot in the cage, and that's the spot where he was hanging out a lot. So I think he's just utilizing it since it's where he likes to hang out more than anything, because he usually has his head sticking out and watching what I'm doing. So he's not hiding per se, but just a cool little dude. Definitely a cool species, a species that I enjoy. The sun was out. I mean, it's still kind of out, but I was hoping you'd be able to see the iridescence of these guys, but now it's not really, so you can't. But very iridescent species, very cool species. We're going to move on, though, because I don't want to make this video incredibly long. So now we do the animal wrangling of trying to get him back in, although he looks like he's going to be pretty good. So he is our number 5 guest. We're just going to take this, chuck it into nature. do a little sanitizer in between animals, although it's kind of foolish to do it in between these two since they're neighbors cage-wise. But because I have snakes from different rooms in different areas, I'm just gonna do it so that I don't forget. So the next one is another lady that you've seen. And this is a species that, you know, is a surprise to me because this wasn't a species that was really ever on my radar. And I think I've talked about it previously. So this is my little maculosa female, spotted python from Australia. You guys have seen her a few times. She is another snake that's just a favorite of mine. But like I said in previous videos, I believe, I was actually helping somebody else find them and started researching about them and thought, you know what, let's take a look around. I found her, I bought her, really enjoyed her. Now I have a male as well who I really enjoy too. She's just much larger, so it makes her much better for videos. He's calm and cool and everything, but he's just a little thing. He's less than half her size. This is a species I'm hoping to breed at some point. She's a Cape York locality. So she's from a specific locality, whereas the male is not. The male's also a granite. She's probably, out of every snake that I own, she's probably the safest snake to just reach in her cage. She can be perched up, she can be anywhere. I can just reach in, touch her, I can pet her, no reaction at all. Now she's very, very food responsive, so if I come in there feeding, she will hammer food. But she seems to know when it's me versus food very quickly. She processes that information right away. I haven't had her ever strike at me for any reason. She's a snake that I trust in my face, on my head, wherever. Outside, I can put her down for a half an hour, go over, pick her up, nothing. Just a super cool species. You know, I think just my passion in some of the other species is why they're ranked higher. But there's nothing that doesn't make this snake a perfect pet. They're very hardy species, very easy to maintain. She sheds great. I don't have to monitor her humidity quite to the point that I do with a lot of the other animals that I keep. I would say outside of my number 1 species, she's probably the hardiest, easiest to deal with. The number 1 species has just been bomb-proof as far as husbandry goes. No, she's really amazing. She just shed a few days ago. You can see she's very alert, active, curious, but not at all nervous, no apprehension whatsoever. Now, when I reach in her cage, sometimes she doesn't always want to come out, so she'll crawl away from me, but she never violently pulls away, nothing like that. Just a really great animal. Little wonky at times, not literally, but she just doesn't care what position she's in, doesn't bother her. She's checking stuff out. Now, I will say a lot of people have spotted pythons that are very nippy, and they can be very, very food motivated, like a lot of Australian species. My two just don't seem to be that way, but I know a lot of people that have them. So if they are a species you're considering for a pet, you know, make sure you're not totally afraid to take a bite. A bite from the snake is not going to hurt you, but I know some people are so afraid of getting bit that's an issue. So just be aware that some of them can be nippy and into adulthood, and some of them just periodically will do it. I've gotten very lucky with my two, at least as far as I understand. You know, I can't look at these other people and say, well, maybe it's something you're doing. There's far too many people that have them that are knowledgeable keepers that have nippy ones. Hank, what are you doing? See, like I said, right in my face, no concern at all. Some species I would be a little bit more nervous, or some individuals. This snake is rock solid. So let's put her back and get to snake number 3 on my list. So we saw number 5 was the southern white-lipped python. Number 4 is the Australian spotted python. Come on, sweetheart. I'm trying to put you in here in a comfortable position. I got her in a really little bin. I got her sitting in a 15 quart while she's outside, so she's stuffed in there. But you guys have seen her cage if you follow the channel, and she's in a 4 foot by 2 foot PVC enclosure, so she has plenty of room in her cage, climbing stuff. This next animal's been on the channel once before, but I set her up in a position where it was really easy for me to work with. Today I have not done that, so this will probably be a little bit more adventurous, so that's why we have tools on hand. She can be extremely flighty. So hopefully this goes well and doesn't ruin the whole video, because if she takes off, I have to chase her, and nobody's going to sit here and watch while I'm chasing away in the woods. So, hi, darling. Are you going to come out and behave? Come on. So this is the 3rd species. This is the Australian water python, Liasis fuscus, or fuscus. Hopefully she doesn't bite me. She may. You see that really nice yellow belly, great iridescence, even though you really can't see it. As I talk about how flighty she is, and she's just sitting here. Fortunately for me, it's in the low 60s right now, so that helps a little bit. I had them outside for a few minutes before I started filming, and I'm trying to hold her in a way that encourages her to kind of stay in this position. And right now she's kind of figuring out her bearings. It's also why I had her in a bin where she can't see what's going on. Just all little tools and tricks to try to make this go a little bit better. But I really love these snakes, and it's unfortunate. I used to have a female that was really, really great, and I lost her. Typically these are very hardy, and but I lost that girl, and it really stinks because she was great. She was one I trusted all the time. This girl I really don't trust, and she's not terrible, but she will bite, and I'm trying to avoid that for the sake of the video, obviously. But pretty cool animal, and she's not super aggressive or anything, but she can just all of a sudden decide she doesn't want to cooperate, and then the teeth come out. So for right now, I'm just moving her in a way where I can kind of keep myself out of the strike zone for the most part, minimize the risk. Beautiful animals, not for everybody. They can really go either way, where they can be super, super calm and great, or they can be totally demonic. So I would suggest talking to the breeder that you're going to get them from. See how their animals are, the parents of the animals, see how the babies are, and just make sure that you get ones. Jesus, I can't find a spot to clip the clip. That are, you know, more apt to be calm. They're pretty easy husbandry wise. I don't really have any problems. She's in a rack right now. I would like to eventually get her in one of those 4x2s, but she does really well in there. And I have a male as well that came with her. He's a little bit smaller, but he's been more flighty, which is weird because initially he was the better of the two. But cool species. They get a little bit larger than that, but very manageable size, something that you're not going to need to dedicate a room to or anything like that, something that you could keep in a 4x2 enclosure probably for most of its life. With really large examples, you probably go for a 6-footer, but they can be a little bit more reclusive, so you definitely want to give them opportunities to hide. Now, we're going to move on to number 2, which is going to be where we're going to find the short-tailed pythons. So I have 3 examples here, and one of each of the species: a Sumatran shorttail, a Borneo shorttail, and a blood python. Now, I like all 3 species. Technically, I would say that I like all 3 equally, but for different reasons. So first up, we'll grab, this is one of this year's Sumatran shorttail babies, and we'll see how this little one handles being out here. So this is a little baby out of Incognito and Midnight Rider. Let me move a little closer so you can see here. It's like, what the hell? It's definitely a little tense and a little nervous, so we won't keep it out too long. I haven't brought this outside since it was a little tiny baby, just for some pictures. So what I like about the Sumatran shorttails the most is their personality. She's being a bad example right now because she's nervous, but even nervous, you notice she didn't try to do anything to me. She's just nervous. So she's just doing her thing, sitting back, and trying to figure out what's going on around her. Whereas a Borneo or a blood, if they were that nervous in that same situation, is more likely to take a swing at you. Now this next guy is one of my favorites, also produced this past season. He's been on the channel a couple of times, I believe, and I know you guys, especially my members, have seen him on other stuff, but this is a Borneo shorttail that I produced. And the reason that these guys are high on my list, not only do they have great personalities, but they're the most fun to breed for sure. Out of everything I've ever bred, this is my favorite species to breed. Just the polygenic nature of the traits and all the different things you have going on. I mean, look at that dorsal striping. He's got that gray coming in. He's got the wiped out sides with that really cool yellow-orange color there. The black dots on the real white, you know, little urate kicking right around there. That'll be coming out soon, I'm sure. But just what's not to like about this animal? As far as pets go, I think shorttails make fantastic pets. They're not high maintenance as long as you keep them clean and ventilated and not too hot. They're really pretty easy animals to take care of. Hydration is important too, and they like fresh water. So, you know, they're not quite like a ball python where, you know, maybe change the water once a week or something and they would be okay with that. These guys need you to change the water a few times a week. And really you should with other stuff as well. But I'm just saying other stuff will drink week-old water. These guys are like, meh, I want fresh water. And you'll notice too with your short tails, when you do change their water, they go right to it. You know, most of them, if they're in a comfortable setting, they'll go right up to it as soon as they notice you pouring it in there. They seem to just have a knack for fresh water. They just know. So that might tell you something to do with their natural environment where they need to get to that water when it's available, you know, when it's fresh. So really cool animal that I produce that I really, really love. I can't wait for him to grow up, but I also just want him to stay small forever because he's fucking adorable and I love him. Great personality. It's funny, I posted a video the other day and somebody was like, oh, it looks like he's getting ready to bite you. I'm like, no, not the snake. Not a chance. He's just totally relaxed in any situation. He will look at me like I'm the dumbest thing alive sometimes, but they all do that and maybe they're not wrong. So we'll put him back and then we're gonna look at a blood python here. Also a snake I produced here. Bunch of little dome piece there, dude. And this one's from a different room, so we're gonna hit this. Just can't be too careful, always want to be safe. Even though it's all within my collection, I still treat different areas of different rooms and different rooms as almost as independent collections. So I'm already kind of stretching what I like to do by doing animals like this. But, you know, all these animals are very, very clean, so the risk is minimal, and I'm doing the hand sanitizer to try to further minimize that. His color looks like shit because it's cold. It's not cold, but if it was like 80, he would look on fire. So this is one of my blood pythons that I produced here. This is one of the ones in the joint project with Dylan. This is a T-positive albino batik blood python. He's a male, right around 2 years old. He's coming in some really nice reds, as you can see there. And the camera robs a lot of the quality, but he's just a fantastic example of a T-positive batik, and he's still got another year or so of coloring up to do. Can you sit still for 1 minute? He's very busy-bodied always. He doesn't like to sit still, but he's a very good-natured animal. I don't have any problems with him. He just has to be on the go all the time. He's not an animal that's going to sit on your lap on the couch, and not because he's nervous or anything like that. He's just an animal that's very curious of his surroundings and wants to be involved in everything and wants to check everything out. He likes to sit in my hand like an ice cream cone sometimes. But look at those reds, and I hope that they show up, and it doesn't look like they are. Of course, I'm on the front camera, which is the worst of the two, but I needed to be able to see the screen with some of these animals to make sure that you guys were seeing them. So blood pythons, definitely near and dear to my heart. Why I like them, I mean, I think it kind of speaks for themselves. I also like that bloods are a little bit edgier than the short tails. And not all of them. I mean, obviously he's great, but they are the most likely to say, you know what, I've had enough of your shit, and let you know. And I find them to do that most often out of the 3 species. The Sumatrans pretty much never doing that to me. I've heard of people that have Sumatrans that bite. None of mine do, ever. That baby was about as high strung as I've seen a Sumatran, other than Morticia. And Morticia, if I was thinking about using her for this video, but I'm like, God, she hates being outside. If it was an indoor video, I would have used her, but she just hates being out here. I just love this snake. Look at him. I mean, how can you get sick of looking at that? Make sure when you guys are watching these videos that you're leaving comments. Comments are what help bump in the algorithms here, so other people get to see these videos as well. And leave a comment and let me know what you think of him specifically, or any of these snakes, maybe what your list of the top snakes that you keep is. Now, number one, you guys have not seen on the channel before. I don't use her for videos very often. She can be a handful outside. A couple of years ago, I took her out. Now, when she was a baby, she was horrible outside. Horrible. She was horrible, period. She just wanted everybody to die, and myself included. And so I stopped taking her out for several years just because it was always a battle. Like, I knew there was a couple times she chased me around the yard. Now, she was tiny. She was like smaller than this, and she's trying to kill me. And I'm like, what are you going to do? You can't even like get to my shoe. He's not going to let me go. This is typical with him too. If you guys have ever seen him on the channel, he is such a pain in the ass. I know. Life is tough. Just go in your bin. Got him. Nice and quick. You gotta be quick, but you also have to be careful. As you're being quick, you gotta be mindful. If he moves last second, you've got to adjust or pull back because you don't want to hurt him. So a couple years ago, had her outside. Now she'll flip a switch where you just see her personality change and you know it's time to end the session. And she did. And I always have my hook with me when she's around. And so I had my hook on the ground behind me and I turned around to pick up my hook. And in the time I turned around to pick up my hook, she was gone. And she's not that fast. So I was like, what the fuck happened? And I turned around, she had went up a tree. And she would not give up the high ground, and she was just trying to pummel me from above. So I had to actually cut down the section of the tree that she was on, carefully, obviously, so as not to hurt her. But I had to drop that section of the tree, rope it off, get it down, and then I was able to get her out of the tree with a fight. But it was a little bit easier to fight when I was on her level as opposed to her above me and my face exposed no matter where I was reaching. Because if she does bite, that's what she wants, is this right here. Now, she's typically great with me. This is a snake I can sit on my couch with. Obviously, I'm very careful with her. She's extremely small for her species. So you're going to look at her and think that she's a juvenile animal, and she is not. She's actually about almost 10 years old. And I've had her since she was just a little fish bait. So she's much larger now. But my previous animal of this species was over 16 feet. And she is not, well, she's maybe half that. But it's just really weird that she's so different. So without further ado, let me grab her. Hopefully you guys stayed because this is a species you probably don't see a lot. It's my favorite species. So if you know me, you've probably heard me mention it before. These guys come from Africa. She looks very upset. So let's see if she's even going to cooperate enough for me to get her out. Mamacita, what are you doing? I know, you hate life. Come here. It's just me. Let's try not to be a piece of shit, huh? So, like I said, you guys are going to think she's not that old. Trying to keep her out of my face in case she does get moody. This is my female African rock python. Like I said, she's almost 10 years old, so she's extremely small, but you can see her build is okay for her size. It's not like, you know, she's undersized. I don't want you in my face because I know what happens when you get in my face and you don't behave. So this is a species that is extremely strong. Even at this size, this snake is capable of killing a person, which is why I'm being very overly cautious about her being in my face or near my neck. I do not let her go up there. People that tell you that this snake cannot kill you are ignorant, very, very stupid, because they can. They are very, very strong. And they know that, and they know how to move their weight around, and they're very, very efficient killers. Would I be worried about a Burmese this size? No, I would not. Would I be worried about a retic this size? Not particularly. You still should be cautious and safe. But these guys and olive pythons and scrub pythons are snakes that at a smaller size can be very, very lethal. And so you need to always, always, always properly manage them. Always be aware of any behavioral changes when you're handling. Have a plan if something goes wrong. But they are my favorite species to work with. And the reason they're my favorite species to work with is these animals really build a personal working relationship with you. Nobody else can handle this animal except for me. Even if somebody else comes in the room, she will actually start pounding the side of her cage and trying to go after them. Whereas, like I said, she'll sit on the couch with me. And now that's not to be confused and be like, oh, well, she loves you. No, she doesn't. She doesn't give two fucks about me. But I have built a relationship where she knows that I don't have any intention to harm her. And so she does not feel the need to defend herself. So as long as I respect the relationship that we have, handle her in the manner that she's comfortable with, and keep her in the manner that she's comfortable with, everything is a-okay. See, though? The wheels are always turning. I went to sit down and get comfortable, and she knew that was a good opportunity to change the leverage of where she was at. And so she's starting to get a little bit more tense. So we're going to cut this short in just a minute. I have probably a minute or two before she's going to say enough of this. And knowing this animal, I know her limits and how to manage it. Really cool bellies on these guys if you've seen it throughout as she's moving. I don't know why she's so small. There is a smaller species of rock python, which are the southern African rocks. She is not one of those. She is definitely a Saibai. There's no doubt between markings and everything else. But for whatever reason, she's just smaller. She is an import. So she did come from the wild in Africa as a baby. What they call like bush babies, basically. And she was imported by a guy down in Florida who I bought her from. The crazy thing is, you see these snakes for sale now, and they're for sale for like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I paid 45 bucks for her. And we're gonna put her back because she's starting to get to that point, and I'll continue to talk in just a second. Let me just do what I need to do to get her in here safely. Because that's the ultimate thing. I want me and the animals safe. And so I know when to push, when not to push. And based on her body language, I could tell that she's at that point where she realizes she's outside, she knows what she's capable of, and she's willing to throw her weight around to get what she wants. So that personal relationship that her and I have lasts only so long before her personal desire for something else takes over, and now I could just potentially be in the way of that. It's also why I didn't really let her get on the ground. If she gets on the ground, she's a much different animal. When she was smaller, I used to let her sit on my shoulder, you know, over one shoulder, and hold her, not around my neck still. And she would be good forever outside like that. But once she hits that ground, those wheels start turning. But for a wild-caught animal, she's very well behaved. Obviously, being so small, she's been in captivity for almost a decade. So, you know, that aspect of her life is long over and out of her head. Also helps to get them that young. But such cool animals, such powerful animals. They absolutely command respect. I would say probably only a few % of keepers are really qualified to keep them, and most of those that are qualified to keep them won't work with that species. If you talk to a lot of seasoned people that have worked with a lot of species, that's the one species that they will not keep under any circumstance. I love them. My favorite species to work with. I love the fact that that snake, every single moment that I spend with her is a test. It's a test of my will, it's a test of my knowledge, it's a test of my ability to think on the fly. I always have to be aware of what she's thinking before she's even thinking it. And I like that challenge in keeping. It's not for everybody. That's an animal where if you don't pick up on those little subtleties, you're gonna get some teeth, and those teeth are big. So you don't want any part of that. And you guys remember I visited Scott at one point. Scott does not like rock pythons at all. He had one try to kill him at a friend's house some years ago, and he will never forget that experience. And I've had her when she gets mad. So the thing with her is coming out of her cage, I have to let her come out of her cage. I can't go into her cage and take her out. If I go into her space, she's going to be very, very upset. And she will let me know she's very, very upset. If I let her come out on her own, then we're good. So that's the relationship, and that's where we are. So I understand that. I can coax her out with a hook or something, kind of encourage her, speed the process along. That's okay. But if I reach into her space, she won't necessarily bite me, but she will wrap herself around my body and she will constrict very tightly until my arm is purple, and she won't let go. And she'll sit there like that and let me know that this does not work. If I let her come out, she's, as you just saw, she can move around a little bit or whatever, but she's very workable. She's not looking to bite me, but I don't trust her in my face for several reasons. One, it's just their instinct. They're very tough predators. Those things hunt hyenas, they hunt crocodiles. Like I said, she's a very, very small example. Why, I don't know. Now, I feed her as a pet. She's not an animal I'm ever gonna breed, at least as far as time goes right now. So I'm not hounding her with food by any means. You know, she's a snake I throw food to every 3 weeks, whatever I happen to be feeding. I got this, here you go, take it. So if I pounded her with food, she would probably get larger. But, you know, she's got great body weight, she's great, she's low maintenance. I've never seen a rock python get a respiratory infection. Assuming, given that they're pythons, that they can get them, never seen it. I've kept them for, I don't know, over 15 years. I've had a bunch of them, never seen it. I've never seen one get sick, ever. Never had one die, other than the big female, but the big female didn't die from natural causes. It's a long story for maybe another time. Some people know that story, but yeah, it was not anything to do with husbandry or anything like that. So there's, you know, I don't know how long they live or anything, but I've never seen one get sick, and I've never had one that I had pass away. So I don't know, but she's an awesome animal, and we've come a long way in our relationship. The first 6 months were really, really dicey. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I'll do more of these videos. I'm getting over to a half an hour, so people won't end up watching because it's so long. So 5, southern white-lipped python. 4, my Cape York spotted python, or spotted pythons in general. 3 was my Australian water python. 2, we did the short-tail complex as a whole, and my favorite species that I keep currently is my African rock python. Her name is Hera, by the way. Some point maybe I'll do a meet the collection on her, we'll see. I'll probably do that video inside so she can wrap around the chair and be a humongous pain in my ass. But we'll see you guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. Check out the membership area if you haven't. Lots of people are on there. We're having fun doing some live videos, doing some breeding information, all kinds of stuff like that. So we'll see you guys.